If something happens in that basement, no one blinks twice. My stomach dropped. They thought the cameras were still dead. They thought I was out helping Mrs. Keaton fix her faucet, like I usually did on Fridays. They had no idea I'd come home early, or that every word they spoke was being recorded. Evan turned away from her, leaning on the sink. "What if it doesn't look right?" "It will," she said. "You'll go down with him to help, like a good son. You'll hear the pop. Panic. Call me. Then call the ambulance. Cry if you can. You're good at that." He closed his eyes. "Jesus, Lena, you make it sound like a plan," she cut in. "Which it is." I pressed pause, staring at their frozen faces. My son, my boy who once cried over a broken baseball bat, now planning my death. The coffee in my mug had gone cold. My pulse was louder than the rain. I backed up the video, rewound it twice, then saved it to 3 places: a flash drive in my wallet, a hard copy in the cloud, and a hidden server I'd set up years ago. The old inspector habits never die. You always keep redundancies. When I could finally breathe, I called Dr. Ellen Marsh. She'd been our family doctor for 30 years. She answered on the second ring. "Hal, you sound off. What's wrong?" "I need a favor," I said. My voice came out level. "Full cognitive test. Write it up today." "Why?" "So no one can ever say I imagined what I just saw." She hesitated, then said, "Be here by 1. I hung up, shut the laptop, and sat in the silence. The house that used to feel like a home now felt like a trap I'd built myself. I looked around the workshop. The shelves, the coils of wire, the multimeter still on the bench. All those years spent making sure other people's homes were safe. I never thought I'd need to save myself. By the time I reached Ellen's office, the rain had stopped, but the sky still looked bruised. I passed every test she gave me: memory, logic, orientation. When she signed the letter, she placed a hand on mine. "Whatever's going on, this says your mind's sharp as ever." "Good," I said. "I'll need it." I didn't go home right away. Instead, I drove to the precinct and asked for Detective Carla Ruiz. She'd handled elder fraud cases for decades. Sharp eyes, soft voice, no nonsense. She met me in a small office that smelled like old coffee and printer ink. "Mr. Thompson, how can I help?" "I think my son's planning to kill me," I said. Her pen froze mid-note. "You're certain?" I opened the laptop, pressed play. She watched, silent, face unreadable. When the video ended, she leaned back. "She's done this before. Same pattern. New name, new man." "She called it an accident," I said. "She won't get one." Ruiz tore off a sheet from her pad and handed it to me. "This is my direct line. Sunday morning, you let them come. Don't change your routine. We'll have 2 plainclothes cars nearby. Say the word breaker on the phone if you sense trouble." I nodded slowly. "You want me to bait them?" "I want you alive," she said. "This gives us proof. Once they act, we move." By the time I got home, the sun was bleeding out behind the trees. I sat in the truck, watching the house. My house. The porch light glowed like nothing had changed. But everything had. I walked in, poured a cup of coffee, and stared at the basement door. They'd picked my workshop as the stage. Fitting. I'd built half this place with my own hands. Wiring, insulation, everything. If I was going to die anywhere, I supposed it was poetic that it'd be under my own work. But not this time. That night, I checked every circuit, replaced every fuse, mounted 2 more cameras, one above the breaker box, another under the stairs. They'd never see them. By the time I finished, it was past midnight. The monitors blinked green. Everything armed. Everything ready. I sat down, hands steady now, and whispered into the quiet, "You picked the wrong house." The hum of the cameras was the only reply. I woke up before sunrise on Saturday. I made coffee and walked the house once. Every camera showed a clean, steady picture. Kitchen, hall, basement, stairs. No blind spots. I called Detective Ruiz at 8. "Everything working?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "They think the system is still dead." "Good. We'll run a quiet drive-by today. Tomorrow we'll be in place by 7:30. Keep your day normal. Don't tip your hand." "Understood." I hung up and wrote a short list on a sticky note. Check backups, buy groceries, mow lawn, act normal. I started with the basement. I tested the pinhole camera above the breaker box. I could count the screws on the panel cover. The mic picked up the soft click of the pilot light on the water heater across the room. I spoke out loud at a normal volume. Test. It came through clear on the laptop. I tested the camera under the bottom stair. It framed the landing and the first 4 steps. If someone tried to stage a fall, the lens would catch their feet and hands. I saved the test clips and uploaded them again. Cloud copy. Local copy. Flash drive. No single point of failure. By mid-morning, I needed to get out of the house. I drove to the hardware store for new batteries, a box of contractor bags, and light bulbs. I said hello to the clerk. He asked about the Broncos. We talked for a minute. It felt good to talk about something that didn't matter. Back home, I mowed the lawn. The ridge line of the mountains sat sharp in the distance. Leaves had started to turn. The air had that dry snap that means fall is real. I focused on straight lines. The mower buzz filled my head and pushed out other sounds. At noon, I ate a sandwich at the kitchen counter. I kept checking the front window. Nothing moved on the street except a kid on a scooter and a dog walker. For a second, I felt normal. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Evan. We're still good for tomorrow morning? We'll bring breakfast. 8 a.m. I typed yes. See you then. He replied with a thumbs up emoji. It felt like a stranger had sent it. I cleaned the counters. I set 2 plates, 3 coffee cups, and a napkin holder on the table. I put the kettle on the stove. I wanted the kitchen to look like any other Sunday morning. No new tools out. No odd wires. Nothing that said trap. At 2, Ruiz called again. We ran your son's girlfriend, she said. Her name is not Lena Carter. She has used at least 2 other names in 3 states. We have open interest on related cases. Will you arrest her before they walk in? I asked. No. We wait for a clear attempt. That makes the case clean. And we take both in safely. I gripped the phone a little tighter. Safely for who? For everyone, she said. We don't want to struggle. Stay in sight. Do not go down those stairs unless you have to. If something changes, say the word breaker and we come in. All right. Mr. Thompson, she added, softer. You're doing well. One more day. Copy that. I spent the late afternoon in the garage. I checked the truck tires. I sorted screws into jars. I wiped down my old toolbox. I needed tasks with starts and finishes. When the sun dropped, I locked up and went inside. At 6:30, I made a simple dinner. Eggs, toast, an apple. I ate slowly. I thought about Evan at 8 years old, falling asleep on the couch with a baseball glove on his hand. I thought about him at 15, slamming a door after I told him he couldn't go out on a school night. Those memories didn't make me weak. They made me steady. I wasn't doing this to punish him. I was doing it to keep us all alive. At 8, I called Dr. Marsh. Thank you for the letter, I said. It helped more than you know. I can guess, she said. Do you want me to come by in the morning? No. That would tip them off. I'll call you after. Then sleep, she said. You'll think clearer. I tried. I lay on my bed and stared at the ceiling. The house made its usual night sounds. The heater ticking, the fridge cycling, a branch tapping a window somewhere. I counted breaths. I must have slept because when I opened my eyes, the room had changed from black to gray. Sunday. I showered, shaved, and put on jeans and a flannel shirt. I laced my boots tight. I made coffee and poured it into a mug. The steam rose in a clean white line. I took one sip. My hands were steady. At 7, I walked the rooms one last time. Everything was in place. The front yard looked tidy. The doormat sat straight. The porch light was off. The living room was neat. The hallway was clear. The basement door was closed but not locked. The cameras blinked green. The recorder showed space left for hours. At 7:10, Ruiz texted, We're set. 2 units parked with sightlines. Another around the corner. You are not alone. I typed, received. At 7:15, I placed my phone on the kitchen counter, screen up, volume high. One tap would open my text thread with Ruiz. I told myself not to tap it unless I had to. At 7:20, I opened the window over the sink an inch. The cool morning air settled the smell of coffee and dust. It helped me breathe. At 7:25, I went downstairs to the basement and moved the step stool 2 feet to the right. I didn't want anyone to trip by accident. The panel cover was screwed on, tight. No live wires were exposed. I checked the water heater pilot light again. Steady blue. I checked the furnace switch. On. I checked the floor for anything that could cause a slip. Dry. I came back up and set the flowers vase on the table. I realized I didn't have fresh flowers. I left the vase empty. It didn't matter. They were bringing their own. At 7:30, I heard a car go by slowly. I didn't look. I didn't want to look out the window and catch a plainclothes officer's eye. I kept my eyes on the kettle. It ticked as it cooled on the stove. At 7:35, I took the spare key from the hook and slipped it into the drawer by the sink. If they looked for it, they'd find it. That would make them feel in control. At 7:40, I stood in the kitchen, mug in both hands, and pictured the next 20 minutes step by step. Door. Greetings. Coffee. Small talk. The basement. Stairs. I rehearsed how to walk, how to stand, how to keep the corner of my eye on the phone. I told myself to keep my voice normal. At 7:42, a message from Ruiz. We see their truck 2 blocks out. Your front is clear. We're ready. I typed, understood. At 7:43, I heard the truck turn onto my street. Tires on asphalt. A door shut. Then another. Footsteps on the walkway. I took one more breath and set the mug down. 3 soft knocks. Lena's pattern, not Evan's. I opened the door. Morning, I said. Hey, Dad, Evans said. He had a bouquet from the gas station. He held it too tight. A paper band dug into the stems. His eyes were tired. Lena held a stainless thermos. We brought coffee and bagels, she said. Her tone was bright, almost cheerful. Her eyes slid past me into the house. Come in, I said. Kitchen's ready. They stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind them. The house settled into a small silence. Cold out there, I said. Set those down. Evan put the flowers on the counter and fumbled with the paper band. He looked at the empty vase. You still keep one of these out, he asked. Old habit, I said. Lena unscrewed the thermos lid and poured coffee into its cap. Yours? She asked, nodding to my mug. I'm good, I said. Thanks. She glanced at the basement door. You still having trouble with that breaker? Sometimes, I said. Figured I'd check it today. We can help, she said. Right, Evan? He nodded. Sure. I picked up my own screwdriver from the counter. It fit my hand the way it had fit for 30 years. I kept my voice even. Let me grab a flashlight. I opened the drawer beside my phone. The light was right on top. I clicked it on. It worked. I clicked it off. Okay, I said. Let's take a look. We walked toward the basement door. Evan fell in behind me. Lena stayed a step back, phone in her jacket pocket, thermos in her other hand. I opened the door and flipped the light switch. The stairwell filled with a clean white glow. Careful on the steps, I said. We started down. My boots hit wood. Evan's sneakers were soft. Lena's steps were light and slow. The camera under the stair nosed at our ankles and caught each tread. On the landing, I paused and looked up. Sunlight cut a narrow bar across the kitchen floor above. It felt like a line I was stepping over. We reached the bottom. The basement was tidy, bright. The panel sat in plain view. The space smelled like metal and old wood. The cameras were silent. The little green record light above the breaker box was hidden by the panel lip. No one saw it. Evan pointed at the cover. This one still trips, he said, voice thin. That's the one, I said. Behind us, a floorboard creaked near the top of the stairs. Lena's weight shifted. She was ready to play her part. I set the screwdriver against the top screw and looked at my son. Last chance, I thought. Say something. Tell me to stop. Tell me you changed your mind. He stared at the floor. I turned the screw. The metal squeaked. The house was so quiet I could hear the sound bounce. Upstairs, the kettle clicked as it cooled. Okay, I said. Let's see what we've got. At the panel, I set the screwdriver down and looked at my son. You remember what I told you when you were 12? I said quietly. Electricity always finds the shortest path. It doesn't care who's in the way. He looked confused. Dad, what are you talking about? About choices, I said, and how current follows what you build. Before he could answer, a hard knock hit the front door. It echoed through the floorboards. Evan flinched. Lena froze on the steps. Detective Ruiz's voice came clear, firm. Police. Nobody move. Everything broke at once. Lena spun, reaching into her jacket, probably for the phone she'd used to time the call. Evan shouted her name. 2 officers flooded the stairwell, weapons drawn but steady. The basement filled with light and orders. Hands up. Lena's defiance cracked. This is a mistake, she yelled, but Ruiz was already beside her, cuffs snapping on. I stayed still. I didn't need to move. The cameras were recording everything. Her panic, Evan's shock, the tools untouched on my bench. When they led her up the stairs, she glared at me. You fixed those cameras. Yes, I said. It's what I do. Outside, sunlight spilled across the porch. Neighbors' curtains shifted. Ruiz walked back down. You okay, Mr. Thompson? I nodded. She picked the wrong circuit. Evan sat on the bottom step, head in his hands. Dad, I didn't mean to. I stopped him with a hand raised. You agreed, Evan. That's meaning enough. He cried then. Quiet. Broken sounds that belonged to a boy, not the man who'd walked in with flowers. I wanted to reach for him, but I didn't. Ruiz crouched beside him. You'll come with us, she said gently. You tell the truth, and maybe it helps. He nodded, unable to look up. When they drove away, the street fell silent again. I stood at the top of the stairs a long time, listening to the hum of the furnace, the faint buzz of the lights. I'd spent my life finding short circuits, stopping fires before they started. I hadn't expected my last job to be my own family. I turned off the basement light, closed the door, and locked it. The next morning, Ruiz called. She confessed, said she'd done it before. Georgia, Indiana, Texas, same method. Your video closed it. And Evan, he's cooperating. 10 years if the judge agrees. He told us she made him believe he'd already crossed a line. I said nothing. You did the right thing, she added. Feels heavy, doing the right thing, I said. It usually does. The trial moved fast. The footage left no room for talk. I told my story once, clear and simple. Lena sat at the defense table, eyes dry, like she was already planning another version of herself for another town. Evan couldn't stop shaking. The sentence came down, life for her, 10 years for him. Reporters wanted a statement, but I walked past them. Outside the courthouse, Ruiz caught up. You can go home now, she said. I smiled without humor. That's all I ever wanted. The house felt different when I got back. I brewed coffee, walked to the basement, and looked around. The cameras blinked their little green lights, patient, faithful. I left them on, not because I was afraid, because they were part of the story now, proof that paying attention still mattered. I poured my coffee, stood at the window, and whispered, job done. The house hummed back, warm and alive. I didn't sleep much after the trial. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that first line again, he won't feel a thing. I'd wake up sweating, still reaching for the phone that wasn't ringing anymore. The neighbors left casseroles on my porch for a week, bless them, but most couldn't look me in the eye. Maybe they didn't know what to say to the man who'd filmed his own son's betrayal. I didn't blame them. Detective Ruiz called one evening just to check in. The department's closing the case, she said. You did everything right, Hal? I hope you know that. I know, I said. Doesn't make it easier. It rarely does. She hesitated. He'll serve maybe 8 with good behavior. She'll never walk free. Try to remember that. I'll try. After the call, I stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the hall. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. Same sound that had been there the morning they walked in to kill me. Nothing had changed, yet everything had. I decided I needed to keep moving. Work, even unpaid work, had always kept my head straight. So I fixed what needed fixing. The porch step that creaked. The door hinge that stuck. I even rewired the porch light. Busy hands leave less room for noise. But the quiet at night was something else. Every time the heater kicked on, I half expected footsteps. One night, I finally gave up, made a pot of coffee, and turned on the monitors. The feeds glowed in shades of gray, empty rooms, steady lights. I watched them for an hour, waiting for something that would never come. Then I shut the screens off and went back upstairs. Weeks turned into months. People stopped talking about it. The paper printed a short column. Woman sentenced in local murder plot. No names, just initials. I clipped it anyway and tucked it into a file marked proof. Dr. Marsh kept in touch. She called every few weeks, gentle as always. "You holding up, Hal?" "I'm fine." "That's what everyone says before they aren't," she said. "You think about visiting him?" "Not yet. He's still your son." "I know," I said. "That's the part that hurts." Spring came early. The snow melted fast, leaving the yard soft and patchy. I rebuilt the fence, one plank at a time. The rhythm helped. Nail, measure, repeat. When I finished, I stood back and realized I'd built it stronger than before. That's when an idea hit me. I drove to the community center and asked about renting a small room. The woman behind the desk, Tessa, looked surprised. "What for?" she asked. "To teach something," I said. "Teach what?" "How not to get killed for being too trusting." She blinked, then smiled. "We'll call it home safety." The first class had 6 people, 3 widows, 1 veteran, 1 retired teacher, and a young single mother. I showed them how to install motion sensors and backup cameras, how to store passwords safely, how to trust paperwork more than promises. By the 3rd week, there were 20 people. By the 6th, the local paper wrote another piece. Retired inspector teaches seniors to stay safe. They left out the reason why, and that was fine by me. In April, I got a letter. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. "Dad, I know you don't owe me a single word, but they let me start a repair class here. I fix things. Small things, but it helps. I'm sorry. Evan." I sat at the table for a long time, tracing the grooves of his name with my thumb. Then I folded the letter once, put it in a drawer, and whispered, "That's a start." Ruiz stopped by that summer. She looked less like a detective and more like a friend. "You've made a name for yourself, Hal," she said. "Project Livewire. People talk about it all the way up in Denver." "I didn't name it that," I said. "Doesn't matter. It works." She set a file on the table. "Something you should see." It was Lena's final statement, cold type on cheap paper. She'd confessed to 3 other scams before me. No remorse, no emotion, just facts. "Thought you'd want closure," Ruiz said. I read one line, then closed the folder. I had closure when they drove her away. She nodded. "Still teaching. Every Wednesday." "Keep doing it," she said, and left. By autumn, the classes had doubled again. The community center gave me a bigger room. People started calling me Mr. Hal, like I was a schoolteacher. Sometimes they brought cookies. Sometimes just stories. One man told me he'd caught his niece trying to change his insurance details. Another woman said she'd reconnected her own door camera after 20 years. Every story felt like a small repair in a bigger system. That winter, when snow started to fall again, I stood on my porch watching the flakes catch in the light. The air was cold, but it didn't bite the way it used to. Inside, the cameras blinked green. The house was quiet. Safe. I wasn't waiting for danger anymore. I was watching for peace. Winter passed slowly, but for the first time in years, I didn't mind the cold. The air felt clean again. The kind that made you breathe deeper, think clearer. The house, my house, was steady, humming alive. I started most mornings the same way. Black coffee, quiet music, and the notebook I kept on the table. Inside it, I wrote short notes. Not plans or goals, just reminders. Be watchful, not afraid. Fix something small every day. Keep the light steady. The notebook kept me grounded. I wasn't writing for anyone else. I was wiring my thoughts the way I wired houses, one careful connection at a time. By March, the snow melted off the gutters, and the community center reopened the garden area behind the building. The first Wednesday of spring, we moved the safety class outside. Folding chairs circled under the oak trees. Frank Miller, my neighbor, showed up early with a cooler of lemonade. "Never thought I'd see you teaching a crowd this big," he said. I grinned. "You'd be surprised what people want to learn when it keeps them alive." By the time everyone arrived, we had 30 people, seniors, young parents, even a few high schoolers. I started by holding up an old surge protector. "This little box saved more homes than most firefighters," I said. "You don't see it working, but it's doing its job. That's what being prepared looks like. Quiet prevention." Heads nodded. Someone clapped softly. I talked about scams, fake repairmen, family members asking for money, just until next week. Then I told them the truth, plain and simple. "Sometimes," I said, "danger doesn't knock on your door. Sometimes it already has a key." The crowd went quiet. The wind moved through the branches, a low whisper of leaves. I didn't mention names. I didn't need to. When the class ended, an elderly woman lingered. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "I lost my savings to my nephew. He said it was for an investment." Her hands trembled as she spoke. I thought it was my fault for not trusting him. I shook my head. "Trust isn't a sin," I said. "But blind trust is an open circuit. You have to know where the current flows." She smiled, tears wetting the corners of her eyes. "Thank you." That night, I wrote in my notebook again, "Teach what you learn. Save who you can." One morning in April, I got a call from the halfway house in Pueblo. It was Evan's counselor. "He's completing his program," she said. "He listed you as his emergency contact. He asked me to tell you he's moving into transitional housing. He's working as an apprentice mechanic." I didn't know what to say at first. "Is he doing all right?" "He's quiet," she said, "but steady." After the call, I sat on the porch a long while. I thought about him at 10 years old, covered in grease, trying to fix his first bike chain. I'd taught him how to tighten the link, how to test the wheel. He'd been patient back then, careful. The same patience that could have saved him later, if he hadn't let someone else hold the wrench. That night, I took out the old box from my workshop drawer, the one with the court papers, Ellen's letter, the flash drive, and all of Evan's notes. I added a new one to the stack. "Dad, they're letting me work full-time next month. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to tell you I'm doing okay. Thank you for not giving up on me." "Evan." I didn't cry, but something inside me unclenched, like a breaker reset after a storm. May came with warm light and slow evenings. Ruiz stopped by again, this time in jeans instead of a badge. We sat on the porch, drinking coffee. "Still teaching?" she asked. "Every Wednesday." She smiled. "You ever thought about writing a manual? You've got enough stories for one." I laughed. "A manual for what?" "Staying alive." "Exactly." I looked out at the street, at the kids riding their bikes, the mailman waving as he passed. "Maybe someday," I said. "But right now, I like talking better than writing." "Fair enough." She stood, brushed off her jeans. "You did good, Hal. I just did what needed doing." That's the difference between the people who make it and the ones who don't. A week later, I drove out to Pueblo. No appointment, just instinct. The halfway house sat behind a row of warehouses. When I parked, I saw Evan out front, tightening a bolt on an old pickup truck. He looked older, lines deeper, hair shorter, but his hands were sure. He saw me, froze, then smiled, cautious but real. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, son." We stood there, neither rushing. "How's the truck running?" I asked. "Better," he said. "Still needs work." "Most things do." He nodded, eyes glistening. "You want to grab coffee?" "Yeah," I said. "I think we could do that." We didn't talk about the past much. Just small things, the job, the weather, a little about Mom. When we parted, he hugged me for the first time in years. It was awkward, but it was enough. Driving home, I didn't feel lighter or heavier. Just level, balanced, like the current had found its right path again. That night, I sat in my kitchen, notebook open, pen ready. I wrote one last note at the bottom of the page. Experience isn't weakness. It's insulation. It keeps the spark from burning you twice. I closed the notebook and looked at the camera lights above the door, still glowing green, still watching. But I wasn't watching for danger anymore. I was just making sure the lights stayed on. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. Please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification for more stories like this. Tell us where you are watching from. We would like to know.